Hello, everyone. Welcome to KJ Talks. And here we have our first guest today. He's a very dear friend of mine. His name is Ismail, the half spaces Farooq. He is, for me, one of the pioneers of podcasting in Pakistan, who primarily focuses on football and sports. And he's covered a lot of sporting activities in the last 2 years, 3 years. And other than that, he's a great person to talk to. And he also talks about social issues and other stuff that are one of genuinely the most smartest people that I know.
Oh bhai,
And I decided, I thought, who better to start off this whole series with than Ismail. And I hope that this will be a regular occurrence where we talk about different stuff going on in the world. And I think that would be great to start with. So, Ismail, welcome to the show. How have you been?
great, my friend. और काफी देर से हम इसको सोच रहे हैं like for people who might like most people won't know this, but Khawaja and I are generally, he's obviously mentioned that we're close friends, but generally we're this हम जब भी बैठते हैं तो हमारी conversations काफी लंबी अच्छी और गहरी होती हैं. तो I'm really looking forward to this and भाई ब्लश करवाएगा रुलाएगा क्या इतना हेवी इंट्रो देके बट एनीवे लेट्स गेट क्रैकिंग
चलो कोई तो ब्लश करवा रहा है आजकल but that's a separate story. Yeah, so just tell me about where you are in life right now and how things are going for you. How has this past year affected you? How are things going on? How are you handling things? How are you seeing things coming in the next year or so? What's the plan? What's going on?
यार राइट ऑफ द बैट हैवी क्वेश्चन यार लेट्स गो लाइक स्टेप बाय स्टेप सो पिछले साल की अगर हम बात करें तो आई थिंक यू एंड आई हैव शेयर्ड सिमिलर एक्सपीरियंसेस जो पिछले एक साल में तकरीबन हुआ है हमारी जिंदगियों में सो
बिल्कुल.
like you obviously lost your father to cancer, and I
Mhm.
lost my mother to cancer a few months after that. So generally, yeah, I think both of us know exactly what the other person has been going through and how life has been like, but I think it's good to spell it out
Yeah.
for people. उसके अंदर I think ये है कि यार पहली तो बात ये इट्स गोइंग टू बी क्वाइट कॉन्ट्रडिक्टरी इन अ वे बट पहली बात तो ये है कि लाइक unless someone has gone through this experience
Uh,
no amount
Absolutely.
of words और like मैं हजार लफ्जों की किताब भी लिख दूंगा मैं वॉल्यूम छाप दूंगा मैं दुनिया की हर लाइक 1.5 2 2 घंटे की पॉडकास्ट रिकॉर्ड कर दूंगा ठीक है बट इट स्टिल डज नॉट लाइक इनकैप्सुलेट या वो प्रॉपरली डिस्क्राइब नहीं
वो
करता
एक
जो आपको
वो
या
एक इनेट फीलिंग है. वो एक
या
इनेट फीलिंग है.
इनेट फीलिंग है एक एक्सपीरियंस है पर्सनल बहुत एक्सपीरियंस है जो आज ना आपकी फाउंडेशन को हिला के रख देता है right and
Absolutely.
it doesn't matter if you had a good relationship or a bad relationship with your parent it hurts
Mhm.
in both like in the situations in different ways ठीक है obviously जब अगर आप close हो बहुत जिस तरह तू भी था जिस तरह मैं भी था so then it hurts in a very obvious way but जब the point I'm trying to make is कि जब ना भी हो आपका अच्छा रिलेशनशिप या नहीं भी था तो even then just the fact I think important ये वजह to understand कि especially हमारी एज में ना most people don't go through this experience at this age for most people
Mhm.
ये इस तरह का कोई experience जो है आगे जाके आता है ठीक है when they're sort of you know अब middle aged होते हैं or something like that या
बिल्कुल.
कुछ का उसके बाद भी आता है तो
Settled
या
or
सेटल्ड
like in their 30s or something like that.
हमारी
Yep.
एज में एक कॉन्टेक्स्ट अगर हम उसको प्लेस करें कि हम अपने आप को लाइफ में ढूंढ रहे होते हैं दुनिया में कि हमने क्या करना है व्हाट आर वी सपोज्ड टू डू द 20s आर सॉर्ट ऑफ नोटोरियस फॉर दिस कि सब अफरा तफरी पड़ी थी एग्जिस्टेंशियल थोड़ा वो होता है
Finding yourself face.
या आई एम वर्किंग ऑन माई सेल्फ फोकसिंग ऑन माई सेल्फ तो
I am working on myself. I'm just focusing on
या
myself right now.
वो चल रहा होता है आपका
Yeah.
तो उसके बीच में यार जब इस तरह की चीज होती है ना तो आपकी फाउंडेशन हिल जाती है completely and for me the past year
Mhm.
has been like honestly so my mom had cancer for around five like diagnosed हुआ था 5 years or so ago and it was diagnosed, stage 4 पे diagnosis हुआ था. तो I mean, जब stage 4 पे diagnosis होता है, then you're pretty much, आपको थोड़ा idea होता है कि क्या scene
It's
है.
inevitability की year होती है कि
Inevitability की
you
error.
know, as in there is, and inevitability के साथ honestly for me it was this year, like we've talked about this, of helplessness, man. Like आप समझते हो, like आपने जितना experience आपने दुनिया में किया हुआ है, एक बंदा एक facade बना लेता है कि यार नहीं, I can do this, I can do this, and then once the reality of life hits you, that there's absolutely nothing is within your power, nothing is within your grasp, ठीक है, and you feel absolutely helpless, right? I know, man, like it's been tough, and it's just that, and that humbles you to an extent, and that like you were saying, it shakes you to your very core, right? The fact that like आप जितने भी फन्ने खान बनने की कोशिश कर लो, when it comes down to what the things that matter, you have absolutely nothing in your control, okay? And once that fact becomes apparent to you, then how do you start rebuilding your life after that, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, definitely. उसके अंदर यार जो like completely linked with this is के तो like this like linked to my last point as well कि जब inevitability की एक एयर आ जाती है, लेकिन again nothing prepares you for the fact. Nothing can ever prepare you for the fact. ठीक है, Alhamdulillah, for some like God's miracle or something, 5 years is like way more than the percentages of people who survive like length के हिसाब से. और जो आखिरी साल था, that was really really tough because उसके अंदर इनएविटेबिलिटी और हेल्पलेसनेस जो है ना वो एस्केलेट कर गई थी. आई वोंट बी लाइंग व्हेन आई विल सेइंग कि डायग्नोसिस के वक्त भी एक हेल्पलेसनेस और वो थी, लेकिन ड्यूरिंग द टाइम पिछले साल से लेके और डायग्नोसिस के बीच में था, दैट वाज those are fond memories for me because like my mom's I knew that she had this disease inside her body, but उनकी जो फंक्शनैलिटी थी, उनका जो उठना बैठना और वो सब था, वो अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह बिल्कुल सही था. सही है. तो आवर हाउस होल्ड वाज परफेक्टली फाइन. यू कुड नॉट लुक एट हर और सी हर एंड थिंक दैट शी इज अ कैंसर पेशेंट. ठीक है. तो उसके बाद एकदम से पिछले रमजान के बाद जो एक डाउन टर्न आया है ना,
क्वालिटी
वो
ऑफ लाइफ
उसमें
में
हमारे
ड्रॉप ऑफ आया है, तो
क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ,
एंड
मोहताजी,
एग्जैक्टली
मोहताजी. यार ये भी बड़ी इम्पोर्टेंट चीज है. आप अपने अम्मी अब्बू को, एक होता है ना यार, माय पेरेंट्स आर ग्रोइंग ओल्ड, दैट्स अ वेरी सैड थिंग. इट यूज्ड टू,
that you consider it a fact of life,
yeah,
right?
इट्स अ
But to
सैड थिंग,
see
यू
it
सी
in
इट. बट ये गेटिंग
yeah,
ओल्ड वाला नहीं है. दिस इज के
exactly,
यू सी देम विदर अवे फिजिकली इन
exactly,
फ्रंट ऑफ योर आईज. ठीक है.
physically,
हाँ,
emotionally, like
आप,
the toll that it takes on people, like honestly, let's go about it like step by step, right? Like so, like for in your case, like it was a long drawn out battle with cancer, right? And then like I agree with you, like you had like four to five decent years even after getting the diagnosis, like
amazing years,
of
man.
auntie that
It made the inevitable, the last few months of her life even more painful because वो एकदम से sharp
exams,
आता है,
exactly,
और फिर वो आपको याद आता है कि यार शिट, ये जो एक चीज थी ना, ये तो इनएविटेबल, मतलब ये अब आ गई है. दिस इज हियर, इट्स एट द डोर नाउ. And you don't, I was in denial. I was honestly in
yeah.
denial. My dad realized, and my mom realized the most because उन्होंने जो अपने लास्ट फ्यू मंथ्स में जो जिस तरह की वो बातें करी थी और जो उनका तौर तरीका था, now looking back on it, I understand that she knew that the window
Is
was closed.
closing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like that's the thing, man. Like let's start off with, and because like grief and how we handle it, it's completely subjective to different people and how they handle it, right? There might be some central themes, but the way that it affects you, some people, they just go back into a shell of their own, right? And because it's so much like change in their life, so such drastic change, like usually that they just recede into a shell of their own. Like alhamdulillah, we had, like again, this is very a dark thing to say, but like we both had this advantage that at least we were prepared for it, right? And when I think about it like
Sort of,
that,
but
like
also not. समझ रहे हैं?
exactly, I mean, I
Yeah.
get it, like, but at the same time
We
you
were
have
prepared
people,
for it to happen, but we weren't prepared for what would unfold after it happened.
yeah, but like then people are not prepared,
Yeah.
like people lose their parents, people lose
सडन
loved ones
अगर
in
हो
like
जाए हार्ट अटैक या कोई एक्सीडेंट में
exactly,
कुछ हो जाए उसमें
exactly,
तो
and
बंदा
then they're like their lives are like uprooted like that, right? So like for me it was like I was in Pakistan. This was in back in 2020 in October, and that's around the time that I left. And my dad was always this pillar of strength and a very larger than life personality who would always, you know, be the strong one in the family and everything. And that's how I remember him. And and when I left Pakistan during that time, that's I did not have any inkling of or any idea that what was about to happen and how my life was about to change, right? So I go
या
there and then my
सॉरी ख्वाजा, इसके इसके बीच में जस्ट टू बिकॉज आई थिंक दिस इज इम्पोर्टेंट, मेरे साथ एग्जैक्टली इसी तरह का सीन हुआ था एंड आई एक्सप्लेन टू पीपल व्हाई आई डोंट लिव इन जर्मनी, आई डोंट गो अब्रॉड, बट मेरे 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 जो मेरे साथ जो हुआ था वो इस तरह सिमिलर था कि लाइक आई एक्सप्लेन, मेरी अम्मी की तबीयत डाउन टर्न हो गई भी थी, और दिस इज लाइक अगस्त का स्टार्ट, ठीक है, ऑफ लास्ट ईयर, एंड सितंबर
Mhm,
में मिड में उनकी डेथ हुई थी, सो दिस इज रियली क्लोज टू हर डेथ।
mhm,
बेसिकली आई वर्क फॉर पार्ट टाइम फॉर फुटबॉल टीम, तो उसके टूर्नामेंट के लिए आई हैड टू गो टू मुल्तान आउट ऑफ सिटी, एंड आई हैड टू गो फॉर अ कपल ऑफ वीक्स,
mhm,
और मैं जब तो उनकी तबीयत खराब ही थी, बट एंड आई रिमेम्बर कि जब मैं आखिरी लाइक द डे बिफोर आई वाज लीविंग आई वेंट टू द डॉक्टर, हर ऑन्कोलॉजिस्ट, बिकॉज वो यूजुअली खुद जाती होती थी, बट शी वाजंट इवन इन अ स्टेट कि वो अपने ऑन्कोलॉजिस्ट के पास खुद जा सके। आई वेंट और मैंने उनकी जाके फ़ोन पे बात कराई थी ऑन्कोलॉजिस्ट से नेशनल हॉस्पिटल के, और
mhm,
ऑन्कोलॉजिस्ट ने मुझे फ़ोन बंद करने के बाद कहा था कि शी इज़ नॉट यूजुअली लाइक दिस, शी सीम्स इन लोअर स्पिरिट्स। तो मैंने उनका मूड ठीक करने के लिए एक दो बातें की हैं उनसे, थोड़ा लाइट हार्टेड कॉन्वर्सेशन की अबाउट पॉलिटिक्स एंड एवरीथिंग, जो भी इमरान खान का
mhm,
मजाक उड़ा रहे थे व्हाटएवर। तो या तो बेसिकली उसके बाद मैं चला गया, लाइक सिचुएशन बैड थी, बट and the tragic thing is Khwaja, like yourself, sort of, but not also not in a way, it was a bit more extreme in my case कि जब मैं गया तो like she was talking, she was functional, like she was lucid,
mhm,
और मैं अपने भाई को कह के किया कि ख्याल रखना इनका और सब कुछ, और मैं इंशाल्लाह आ जाऊंगा वापस। But what happened was कि during my trip over there, so मेरी बेसिकली आई एम गोइंग ऑन अ सॉर्ट ऑफ टेंजेंट, लेकिन वो जरूरी है।
go ahead, man.
मेरी मेरा अपनी मम्मी के साथ बहुत एक लाइक गोज विदाउट सेइंग, बट बहुत ज्यादा गहरा ताल्लुक था। वो एक लाडला वाला जो सीन नहीं होता, सो माय मॉम एंड आई हैड अ वेरी स्पेशल कनेक्शन,
Mhm,
और व्हेनेवर आई यूज्ड टू गो एनीवेयर तो वो कॉल्स वगैरह कर रही होती थी। इनफैक्ट देयर इज अ so I don't know. I mean it's part of why we're doing this podcast, because I haven't told these things to anyone, but now that this is out in the public, but I guess this is a good coping way to go about
of
it. But
course.
and I'm not a public person at all, so this is groundbreaking for me. But I guess this is a nice way to force myself to say these things. But basically, उनका ये वो इतनी attached और वो थी, he was a very emotionally expressive person, which is very unlike myself, and that was a good balance that we had in the in the dynamic. So basically मुझे एक चीज याद है कि मैं एक लम्स की ट्रिप पे जा रहा था, और अभी मैं घर से निकल के लम्स गया था और बस में बैठ के जाना था, अभी 40 मिनट हुए थे, और फैमिली
Mhm.
ग्रुप पे अम्मी का मैसेज आ गया मिस यू, और अब्बू का आगे से मैसेज आया या प्लीज या कम ऑन कि ये अभी 40 मिनट हुए, रिलैक्स। तो लाइक ये तो the point I'm trying to make is कि we were always in contact, we always used to talk and everything। तो जब मैं मुल्तान गया तो शुरू में बात हुई कुछ दिन, उसके बाद बात होना बंद हो गया। to tell her to call me and everything, and she used to say कि अच्छा करूंगी and everything और सब कुछ। फिर भाई और अब्बू से पूछने की कोशिश की, भाई और अब्बू बड़े अजीब अजीब जवाब देते थे कि हाँ उनका नो है, वो दे कर देंगी ये वो। तो आई फिगर्ड आउट समथिंग वाज लाइक दे आर नॉट, जो भी है। फिर मेरी कजन ने
Mhm.
मुझे, मैं रात को उधर स्टेडियम में था, मेरी कजन ने मुझे बताया कि आई डोंट नो व्हाई नोबडी इज बीन टेलिंग यू दिस, बट योर मॉम हैज बीन ऑन द ऑन लाइक बेड रेस्ट भी नहीं कहूंगा, चीज जस्ट लूसिडिटी जा रही है उनकी, और लाइक पिछले 3-4 दिन से शी इज नॉट ईटन एनीथिंग और समथिंग, तो आई थिंक यू शुड गेट बैक टू लाहौर। Bro, oh Sraat Khwaja, that was the worst night of my life. I found out कि बैड सीन है around 2 a.m. पहले तो जब मैं स्टेडियम था तो शी टोल्ड मी समथिंग वाज रॉन्ग. 2 बजे उन्होंने मुझे कहा कि निकल आओ. अब 2 बजे उस वक्त ना ये यार, एक तो इमरान खान ने जिंदगी में वक्ते डाले हुए हैं. वो इमरान खान ने या पता नहीं किसने उसकी वजह से जो है ना मोटरवे बंद की थी.
अच्छा.
मुल्तान मोटरवे. तो ये डेबू शेबू भी नहीं चल रही थी, पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्ट बंद थी. और 2 a.m. था एंड आई कुडंट स्लीप. आई वाज एब्सोल्युटली गॉन, ठीक है, ऑब्वियसली. तो मैं बस था कि किसी तरह मैं मुल्तान से जाऊं. थैंकफुली माय फ्रेंड हु इज द कोच विद मी, ही समहाउ अरेंज्ड अ रेंट अ कार एट दैट टाइम. और मैं उसी वक्त 3 बजे निकला हूँ. अ, और लाइक वो रास्ता और वो जर्नी मुझे अभी भी याद है. दैट वाज द वर्स्ट आई फेल्ट. और मैं घर पहुंचा हूँ सुबह 7 बजे और समथिंग, आई डोंट नो, 6 बजे. और मैंने देखा तो वो बिस्तर पे बस शी वाजंट lucid at all, right? So the point I'm trying to make is a long drawn story is कि basically I didn't get to say goodbye to my mom either at all. The state that I left her in, I didn't even imagine कि जब मैं वापस आऊंगा तो basically that was the last time that I would be talking to her properly when I left. So yeah, sorry, continue. I just wanted to draw that comparison.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, like I was saying, I left for Germany, like nothing was wrong, and like these thoughts would never even like in your mind, right? Like then my brother went to Pakistan, and then like I find out that dad's having a surgery or something like that. There's some gastro like issues or something like that, and he needs to have a surgery. And I'm like, okay, cool, that's okay. I talked to him a little bit, and then yeah, and then and so this is again like you touched on it as well. This whole thing of our families not telling us the whole thing, and this is especially like even worse over here when you're far abroad. Like I understand the sentiment of not like trying to burden yourself, but this is like the biggest thing in your life, right? So like my brother was having these conversations with his friends. He was telling them, okay, this is happening, and I was completely in the dark, right? Like there has been a cancer diagnosis, and and my brother told me and I got to know of these things, like then there's a biopsy and everything. I got to know of these things through my brother's friends who I was living with around that time, right? And like thank God for them, like they once I heard the news, they took care of me, everything, and that was a very tough time in my life. And yeah, they told me and stuff, and then my brother came back, and I assumption from what brother got it early stage and everything, right? A brother comes back home in 2 days. Like, what happened? Trust me? Like, yeah, of course. And he's like, yeah, you're going. And I'm like, okay, and it's sorted, right? And then I go there, and then even after coming back, like it took a week for me to get to know the severity of the situation, and by that, that was like the end of February. And 3 weeks later, he was gone. Like, but again, I'm just glad for the time that I got with him. And you know, there's some things, like for example, when my dad was really really sick, like when like almost in the last week of his life, he needed a blood transfusion or something, and I didn't know my blood types. Like, I imagine me going through 25 years of my life without knowing my blood type, right? But then I was like, maybe I'm a match, so I tested it, and then turns out we were a match. And then you know, I donated that blood, and so it's also, it's like things like that that hold very dear. But like you said, like my dad was also a very huge opponent of Imran Khan, and we bonded usually over politics and stuff like that.
मेरा भी
And you know, we used to talk about, like, he had lived like the majority of his life in Lahore and stuff, and he'd seen like the hope since Pakistan's been born, like, and all the military establishment and everything going on. He was a very knowledgeable man. So we used to have like these long drawn discussions where, you know, and Dad would tell me how he used to see the army or the establishment beforehand, and how that changed and everything. And then yeah, and then it was like 3 weeks later he was no more, and and everything just happened so fast that I didn't even know how to react or what to do. Like, it was just shell shock kind of thing, that, you know, like you think everything's going okay, and then just like that, your whole world's been, and honestly, a part of your personality that, that's never going to be the same. You're never going to be whole again. It's just completely gone, right? Like the person I was to my father or in front of my father, like similarly for you, the person you were in front of your mother, uh, we can never be the same people again. Like we do not have the capacity to be that self again, right?
हाँ वो
And
मर
that
गया, वो self वो
वो
मर
अंदर
गया.
से मर गया. No, you're incomplete, right? So this, and so yeah, and after that, now coming to the topic that we wanted to talk about, like grief and how we handled it, right? For me it was I think he passed away on the 26th of March, and I had to fly out almost a month later. And like the whole thing with the funeral and everything, it just like you're just in a haze for the first week, 2 weeks, 10 days, whatever. You're just surviving. You're in survival mode. You don't even know what's
आप लोगों
happening.
से मिल रहे होते बस.
हाँ, लोग आके आपको कह रहे हैं हाँ भाई अल्लाह की मर्जी है. I'm like, yeah, of course, like, but like I don't blame them. Like what else can they say? Again, it's
Yeah.
something that, like you said in the beginning, someone who has never been through that can never
What are they
tell
going to? हाँ उनका क्या कसूर है?
exactly वो क्या उनका क्या कसूर है, right? But like again, there's this feeling inside of you that just wants to scream, like the little kid inside of you who has lost his parent, right? And so yeah, it was after that I came back, and my brother was still back home. And yeah, I had to start. I just put myself into work. I had nothing else to do. I knew that, if I dwelled on it too long, then I'd probably lose myself. And it started off for me like I became a bit distant with my family in the beginning, because I felt guilty of betraying them or something by coming out. You know what I mean? Like all of my family was back home, and I'm all alone out here. So I feel like I've betrayed them, like I've abandoned them essentially, right? And on top of that, like it was just like this feeling. And then I talked to my family and stuff, and like we cleared things up. And of course, like the whole discussion came about that, of course it's a trauma, and of course the only way that we're going to be able to get through this is together, right? So that just for me was like, and even like it's we've had this discussion before, that like grief and how you handle it, it's always been a very continuous process, right? And I, it's always like you can be fine one day, right? And a moment will pass, and then this wave hits you, and then you can do nothing else but just resign yourself to the wave, because there's no need, or it's futile to like resist it or anything like that, right? There has to be processed like that.
Resist
And
करिए. What is resistance? How do you?
what resistance
What
is
would that mean?
resistance would mean to try to power through it when like nahi, I'm okay, right? Like going against your body's inclination. Of course, like you need to stop, like slow down and accept it and let that feeling pass through you. And if you could like resist it, like I'm not gonna give in to this feeling or something like that, that's only gonna make matters worse for you. And that was kind of like. And again, even like I moved back. I visited for a couple of months, and then I came back recently, and it's been the same feeling again, like the feeling of abandonment and everything, and especially how like the structure at home in like the absence of the central father figure, and how everything has gone about,
हाँ
like,
ये बहुत
and
बड़ा
how
key
seeing.
part है. लोगों को इसका भी एहसास. I mean, I'm not blaming them, but I'm just saying it's a fact कि लोगों को एहसास इस चीज का नहीं होता कि every part of your life alters completely, because when you have parents you don't realize it, because why would you? It's been that way since जब से आप पैदा हुए हो. But
And they've shielded
everything
you
you
from
do,
so much.
everything you revolve,
Exactly.
everything in your life is underpinned. I'm talking about most people who have functional families and parents, by the way.
Yeah,
So
of course, of course, of course.
privilege check करना पड़ेगा अपने आप को. But the point I'm trying to make is कि basically everything is underpinned by योर पेरेंट्स, ठीक है। तो जब वो एक बीच में chasm आ जाता है ना, तो it affects everything. So like you said कि father figure चला गया, मेरे घर पे like everything has changed, everything. um like from like every aspect that you can think of, like emotionally everything has changed, and functionally everything has changed, dynamically everything, मतलब सब कुछ change हो गया in ways that we didn't even react, like anticipate. और उसको आप किस तरह लेके चलते हो और क्या करते हो, honestly it's just going with the wave. किसी को कोई steps नहीं बता सकता, ना ही कि मेरे पास कोई steps हैं. I don't know what the
Of
steps
course.
are.
Like we said, like it's very subjective. But the thing is that people should be cognizant of it. It's not a very easy conversation to have, and it's probably one of the toughest conversations that you'll have in your life. And of course, it's the most toughest, at least for me, periods of my life. And so, like you're right, it's the way that your life completely is uprooted, and then that, like, tell me a little bit about that for you personally, like uh how do you go about rebuilding your life after such a huge loss?
Yeah, how do you rebuild your life from there? Or yeah, it's emergent order. Honestly, by that what I mean is कि वो खुद ही एक shape लेती रहती हैं चीजें. You really can't plan anything. Because you can't foresee anything. जो आपको जहाँ पे फायर फाइटिंग या जो भी करनी पड़ती है, you can't foresee anything. तो मेरे अपने पर्सनली हर बंदे के डिफरेंट वो होते हैं, बट मेरे so just the nature of these things के for example one of the main things is के my mom was like the the glue that held the house together, ठीक है. जो रौनक नहीं होती घर में, like all the emotionally expressive one, the one who wanted to meet people and मतलब के बात करें, ये करें, वो करें, all of that, ठीक है.
A ray of
Meanwhile,
sunshine
yes,
in
in
with the Farooq
otherwise
household.
in an otherwise pretty introverted place, लेकिन
Exactly.
just for context,
Stoic Farooq sitting together.
तो ऑनेस्टली यही सीन है, स्टोइकनेस के अलम बरदार है हम. और मतलब लाइक मसला ये है कि इट्स सो लाइक, मैं किस तरह आप समझाऊं कि not only have all of us suffered immense trauma, all three of us, but the problem is कि all three of us are wired in a way, and I'm not sort of defending this or justifying it, we're just wired in a way in which अभी तक हमने उसके बारे में बात ही नहीं की, पता, डायरेक्टली बात नहीं की अभी तक जब से हुआ है. We haven't talked to each other about it. We've not. We just like it's बस
हाँ
it's
ठीक है.
there.
देख लेंगे.
It's there.
It's there. It's just it's in the
It's
room.
there.
It's the elephant in the room. No
इनफैक्ट अब तो
one's
एलिफेंट को भी
acknowledging it.
शायद बाहर निकाल दिया, लाइक एलिफेंट को भी चुप के बाहर सुट दिए गए, एलिफेंट भी क्या कर रहा है. बट द पॉइंट ऑफ मेक इज लाइक तू अंदाजा लगा ये सीन है. सो it's not like we are on bad terms with each other, we're on very good terms, but just the nature of the relationship is such के हमारा आपस में इसी, हम तीनों इसी तरह के थे. All our emotional sort of connections or anything to whatever degree was with our mother separately, ठीक है. और उन्हीं के इर्द गिर्द सब कुछ घूमता था. अब जब दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा धचका लगा है, और जिस बंदे के साथ आप सारा, लाइक मैं वैसे ही इमोशनली एक्सप्रेसिव आदमी नहीं हूँ, लेकिन मैं
बिल्कुल.
अपनी लाइक शी वाज माय बेस्ट फ्रेंड एंड द पर्सन आई यूज्ड टू जो चीजें बता सकता था ऑब्वियसली वो बताता था मैं. तो जब वो चला गया, इतना बड़ा धचका लगा, तो आप किधर जाओगे,
हाँ.
कि क्या ही
किसके
करोगे.
पास जाओगे, किससे बात
क्या
करोगे? हाँ.
क्या किसके किसके पास, when the one person who you went to with all your worries is gone, when the biggest worry ever has come about, तो like what are you supposed to do. तो ये मसला है एक बहुत बड़ा. उसके बाद मसला, तो ये प्रोसेसिंग वाला मसला है कि भाई प्रोसेस किस तरह करोगे. फिर फंक्शनल मसले हैं. आई मीन बड़ा सुनने वाला कोई समझेगा कि बड़ा अजीब कह रहा है कि अब वालदा की वफात होगी और फंक्शनल उसकी बात कर रहा है, बट इट्स अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट ऑफ योर हाउस होल्ड एंड योर लाइफ. Like you don't realize. So my mother used to work as well, some मतलब बीच में, ठीक है. पहले वो डॉक्टर थी, उसके बाद मतलब she stopped practicing, but later towards her life she was working again. और so it's not like she was just a homemaker or anything, but भाई जो हमारी अम्मियाँ करती है ना इस मामले में, लिटरली घर चलाने वाला या घर को सजाने वाला जो काम है, बाय
बिल्कुल।
सजाना आई डोंट मीन लाइक डेकोरेशन, आई मीन के घर को लाइफ देना, टू गिव लाइफ टू द हाउस होल्ड, टू गिव लाइफ
टू
टू द
मेक अ
हाउस होल्ड,
हाउस अ होम,
टू मेक अ
एब्सोल्युटली।
हाउस अ होम। वो चीज अब वो चीज भी चली गई है, फंक्शनली भी। ऑनेस्टली इट्स जस्ट के वी हैड लाइक, अब हमारी जो हाउस हेल्प जो है वो, शी इज बीन विद अस फॉर अराउंड 8 to 10 years नाउ। तो शी वाज समवन जो अम्मी ने, अब लाइक एज हम उनको एज अ मेंबर ऑफ द हाउस होल्ड ट्रीट करते हैं, और अम्मी ने उनको, अब हमें पता लगता है कि शी सॉर्ट ऑफ मेंटोर्ड हर, एंड दिस वाज द काइंड ऑफ वुमन शी वाज, के तुमने क्या करना है, बिकॉज शी न्यू कि शी वुड इवेंचुअली नॉट बी देयर एंड वी वुड हैव टू somehow survive। तो वो है, और हम we're just sort of coping, like we do the house chores a lot, like पहले से आदत थी अब्बू को मेरे, like my dad is very different from most you know the stereotypical sort of
पाकिस्तानी मैन, या
पाकिस्तानी वो के बैठ घर से ऑफिस है और टीवी के सामने बैठ के or something like that। I don't mean to offend, but the point I'm trying to make is कि पहले से आदतें ये थी,
दैट विल
बट
कम लेटर, बट हाँ
हाँ या
कंटिन्यू।
बहुत ज्यादा, बट द पॉइंट ट्राइड टू मेक इज के ये भी चीजें आपको देखनी पड़ती हैं। फिर आपने मेरे मेरे जो मेन जो हाउ आई हैड टू नेविगेट थ्रू दिस इज ऑन अ पर्सनल लेवल, इसके मुझे पता था मेरे अब्बू और मेरे भाई जो है, मेरी अम्मी का जो वो एक इमोशनल वो प्लेस थी ना ऑफ बीइंग सॉर्ट ऑफ द ग्लू, वो नहीं करेंगे, नॉट बिकॉज देयर इज वो malevolence या वो है, बट लाइक दे जस्ट कांट, इट्स नॉट
They
इन
just
देम।
can't. It's not
I can't
like
either to
he's
that
not wired
effect.
that way. Yeah, yeah,
They're not wired that way at all.
yeah.
I'm not either. But if
हाँ
any one of them was going to do it, मैंने मेंटल खुद ही संभाला, बिकॉज देख इस तरह की सिचुएशन में ना आप, लाइक मैं तो स्पेशली बड़े वियर्ड और स्पॉट में था, क्योंकि दे वियर्ड स्पॉट में भी समझाता हूँ, बट एक तरफ मुझे अपने उसको डील करना था, आई मीन दैट अलोन इज इनफ टू लाइक शॉक और लाइक बैटर एनीवन टू द ग्राउंड, ठीक है।
हम्म
वो करना था, बट एट द सेम टाइम मेरे पे एडेड एक जो मैंने खुद रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी दी थी या वट एवर वॉज के,
हम्म
मैंने अपने अबू को सपोर्ट सपोर्ट देनी है एट दिस टाइम, ही इज लॉस्ट अ पार्टनर, ठीक है, लाइफ
of
पार्टनर।
course,
और
of course.
मैंने अपने भाई को भी जो है ना, वो एक तरह से आई एम सॉर्ट ऑफ हैव टू ट्राई टू बी व्हाट माय मॉम वाज फॉर हर, बिकॉज मेरे अम्मी और
वो
अब्बू
एक
बड़ी
इमोशनल
डिफरेंट थे।
स्पेस क्रिएट
हाँ
करनी है
हाँ
अपने छोटे
एग्जैक्टली,
भाई के लिए। You have to
ठीक है,
step up and be
या
that person.
तो
Yep, yep.
मेरे लिए राइट फ्रॉम द ऑफ, एंड दिस इज द सॉर्ट ऑफ पर्सन आई एम, लाइक पीपल कॉल इट वियर्ड और जस्ट पता नहीं क्या, बट द पॉइंट लाइक बेसिकली जिस रात उनका डायग्नोसिस हुआ था ना, द फर्स्ट थिंग दैट माय रिएक्शन वाज आफ्टर हियरिंग इट वाज के व्हाट तब अभी स्टेज 4 का नहीं पता चला, वैसे उसके कैंसर, ठीक है।
Hmm.
तो था कि व्हाट आर द नेक्स्ट स्टेप्स, हाउ कैन वी फिक्स दिस। So that's just
Exactly.
how I am, how I am. I look at
वेरी
solutions,
फंक्शनली अच्छा भाई,
solutions।
लॉजिकली अच्छा,
हाँ
अगला स्टेप क्या है, ठीक है।
solution, like it's not कि मैं बिल्कुल ही वो नहीं हुआ था, but the point trying to
हाँ
make is कि this is just how I try to solve the situation or cope or try to help or whatever। तो ये जब ये भी हुआ तो मेरी पहले like one of the first ways that I cope was कि अच्छा मैंने घर में किस तरह like how what do I have to do, what are the things that I have to become now। तो I'm not going to lie, and Khawaja, this is going like tossing the ball back to you, but इसके अंदर यही है कि grief is just something that never leaves you. It never leaves you. It's not. It's
या
difficult from sadness or depression or heartbreak or whatever. ठीक है, because
या
you can be perfectly fine and like outwardly or whatever, आपके 10 साल भी गुजर जाएंगे, but वो एक जो होल होता है ना, with every life achievement, with every passing day, you will have that hole because that part can never be that portion can never be filled again। तो अगर अब आप उसको सोचो in terms में कि I'm sure you
या
you might have thought about this as well कि
मेरे लिए
for
यार,
example, yeah,
go on.
sorry,
नहीं, मेरे लिए यार, the worst was when all of us, like, we went to the graveyard and we buried him, and when we were leaving for the first time, right? Because when he passed away, uske baad, I didn't leave his side, apart from when, like, again, he had to be kept in the freezer, which is usually the case.
yes,
So उसके बाद like that was the first time like I was with him throughout in the ambulance, everything. Like I didn't want to leave his side, right? But then the finality that came with like burying him and everything, and I just like let out like this primal scream in front of my brothers, who only saw that side of me. And they were again very, I think it's just like a generality that काफी मेरी फैमिली में भी सारे स्टोइक बैठे हुए ख्वाजा फार टाइप जो अगली दफा इस पॉडकास्ट पे आएंगे। लेकिन वो एक यार एक वो थी कि लाइक एक फाइनलिटी उसमें थी कि यार कि and the thoughts that were going through my head was like this was not supposed to happen. He was supposed to be there at my wedding. He was
What
supposed
if
to
my
be
life
there.
was normal?
Exactly. Like he was like
What if
just like
this goes through my mind as well? What if I had both my parents in good health and I was
exactly.
living my life? Honestly, you can't. I would do anything to
Yeah.
have that, and
Yeah.
that would. अब आप सोचते हो कि अगर बस वो एक चीज होती ना, just my parents being healthy and alive, that would mean that my life is set. I wouldn't care a toss about other things. Obviously, मुझे रोज ups and downs होती हैं, but there's no going back from this.
Yeah, of course. उसके अलावा यार I also wanted to talk like piggybacking off your point, एक about like emotional, and again this is not to say that most people are emotionally in tune with their parents or something like that, but in general functional homes, you see this case where like एक मुखलसी का आलम होता है कि like आपसे ज्यादा मुखलिस आपके पेरेंट्स के अलावा, इन स्पेशली इन दैट्स माय ओपिनियन इन देसी हाउस होल्ड, उससे ज्यादा कोई मिलेगा नहीं आपको जिंदगी में, ठीक है?
नहीं मिलेगा।
तो लाइक यू कैन गो टू लाइक ऑफ कोर्स एक थोड़ा बहुत एक बैरियर रहता है विच इज अगेन थोड़े कल्चरली इश्यूज हैं उसके अंदर कि थोड़ी रिस्पेक्ट के अंडर या वो कुछ चीजों में थोड़ा कम्युनिकेशन का बन जाता है, बट जनरली यू नो दैट दे हैव योर बैक, राइट? एंड यू नो दैट दे हैव गॉट यू एसेंशियली, लाइक you and that's the thing, like
my biggest well-wisher is gone.
Exactly, like
और दूसरा इसके अंदर
the difference
got
is
your back,
also like for in the case of mothers, like it's generally कि यार को लाड उठाने वाला मेरा हो, ठीक है, कि मैं किसी के सामने को मैं अपनी मनमानी भी कर सकूं, कुछ वो कर सकूं, ठीक है, कि मैं भी इंसान हूं, मैं भी किसी के सामने आई कैन
आप 30 साल के स्टोइक वो बन जाओ, कोई मार्कस ऑरेलियस बन जाओ, लेकिन माँ के सामने आप फिर भी
माँ के सामने आप वो लाइक वो जो आपका अंदर का चाइल्ड है ना, वो उसी स्टिमुलाई को क्या नाम है वो करेगा, उसको रिस्पॉन्ड करेगा। सिमिलरली विद फादर्स इट्स लाइक यार कुछ भी हो जाए ना, मैं 40 साल का हो जाऊं, जो कुछ भी हो जाऊं,
जो आपको सपोर्ट उस तरह का मिलता है ना, टू आई थिंक दिस इज अ वेरी गुड पॉइंट, सो लेट मी ट्राई टू आर्टिकुलेट इट। जो आपका अंदर का बच्चा होता है, लाइक यू सेड, उसको आपकी जो अम्मी होती है ना, वो लाइक यू कैन टैप इनटू दैट, और वो बड़ा जरूरी होता है कि जब एक्सटर्नल दुनिया में आप जो भी शल दिखा रहे हो, जो भी हो रहा है, उसके टू कोप विद दैट, टू डू एनीथिंग, यू नीड टू गो बैक टू योर, टू बिकम दैट सॉर्ट ऑफ, टू गो बैक इनटू दैट इनर चाइल्ड दैट यू हैव, ठीक है? अब फादर्स की अगर हम बात करते हैं, तो फादर्स डू इट इन अ वेरी डिफरेंट वे, एंड इट्स अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट वे एज वेल। व्हाट दे डू इज के जब आप दुनिया में निकल जाते हो ना प्रैक्टिकल लाइफ में, दे आर सॉर्ट ऑफ द रॉक दैट आर देयर फॉर यू इन द एक्सटर्नल वर्ल्ड। उस एक्सटर्नल वर्ल्ड को वो आपका वो कर देते हैं कि यार
कुछ भी हो जाए, कोई एक्सटर्नलिटी आ
आपको थाने को चुप के ले जाए,
यू नो ही इज वन कॉल अवे,
आपके अब्बू पहुंचेंगे,
यू नो ही इज वन कॉल अवे, आपके पीछे खड़ा है वो। एक वो है ना कि मैं माड़ा नहीं हूँ, मैं कल्ला नहीं हूँ, ठीक है, मेरे पीछे कोई खड़ा है। तो अनफॉर्चुनेटली इन अ पेट्रियार्कल सोसाइटी एज आस, वो क्या नाम है, दैट रोल इज यूजुअली प्लेड बाय आवर फादर्स कि यहाँ कुछ नहीं हो जाए, बस पुश कम्स टू शव।
well, here's what I'm going to offend already. In some cases that the nature of the external world is such that it can only be a father.
Of course.
अगर आप किसी वायलेंट एस्केलेशन या उसके अंदर पड़े हुए हो को मसले मसाइल में, तो आपकी अम्मी थोड़ी आके उसको कुछ करेगी, लाइक आई मीन
that again has to do with the society that you grow up in as well, like for me at least, but generally like तो उस हिसाब से देखना कि like you said the rock of your life, right? like कुछ भी हो जाए जिंदगी में, he's one call away, आपका सेफ्टी नेट कहना है, आपने जो कुछ भी कहना है, ठीक है, and then like in an instant you're left rudderless, right? And then you have to figure this shit out by yourself. Like no one can replace the pedestal on which that he was, right? And no one can come close. And similarly with mothers, no one can come close, right?
Yeah.
Or hopefully you get married someday. Like there is a part
Hopefully.
of you where you're like, hopefully again, nakam ashik baithe
भाई,
हुए हैं वो.
ओ भाई.
But the idea is this, like we talked about, this just innate, like the hole left in your life is just so humongous that I think somewhere somehow we also try to fill that hole, but that's futile, right? To make it like to make yourself at least a little bit more whole, right? And then, like for example, for my case, it's like to try to do the things that my dad would have wanted me to do, right? Like
Yeah.
to not give up or anything like that, like to explore myself, right? The things that my dad used to advise me on, कि यार जिंदगी बहुत छोटी होती है, ठीक है, अभी तुम्हारे में एनर्जी है, जाके करो जो कर सकते हो, जो तुम्हारे दिल में आ रहा है ना
Don't
तुम.
turn 50 and have a life full of regrets.
एग्जैक्टली, रिग्रेट्स के बगैर रहने की, रिग्रेट्स के साथ आपकी सोल और आपकी मेंटालिटी और छोटी होती रहती है, बट दैट्स अ टॉपिक फॉर अनदर डे. बट द आइडिया इज कि आप you try to put yourself more out there. Like अब honestly I felt that change in me. Like कुछ पहले मेरा होता था ना कि यार कि मैं अपने आप को थोड़ा बहुत कभी रोक लेता था. अब I'm like कि यार कि मैं who am I gonna offend, ठीक है, अगर मैं कुछ गलत भी कर रहा हूँ या something like that, ठीक है, मैं क्योंकि
ज्यादा
I'm on
ज्यादा
my
क्या हो
own.
जाएगा, ज्यादा ज्यादा
हाँ,
क्या हो जाएगा, you miss your shot.
exactly. हाँ, like क्या हो जाएगा, like
That was,
I'm
that
on
was
my.
going to be outcome anyway if you didn't take the shot.
Exactly, right? So I'm on my own, right? Like अब मैं कुछ भी कर लूं, like I have the मैंने डील करनी है ना सिचुएशन से, और जो भी उसकी एक्सटर्नलिटी होगी तो I'll take it, ठीक है, देखी जाएगी, कुछ भी होता है, ठीक है. तो idea of coming out of your comfort zone and doing what XYZ or whatever you want, I think that's the definite mentality change that has come in me, at least. I'm more open to things where I'm like, yeah, fuck it. Like वो ये होता है ना कि once, like you said, जिंदगी में इतना बड़ा धचका लग गया कि what's the worst that can happen, देख लेते हैं,
Yeah.
देखी जाएगी, ये भी
Yeah.
सह लेंगे.
ये इसका ये होता है कि आप ये अब इसको वैसे नहीं यार, if I think about it, that's not true. You like, but in a way, I think when you go through something like this, you're like, unless something like this happens again, Allah na kare, with the other parent, anything else that happens, apart from, death of a family member, of a close family member, um, other than that, it's, I can take it. Matlab,
Yeah,
nothing can compare to this. I can take it. Everything,
absolutely.
financial ruin, I can take it. I can take anything. I can take a rejection from a person or a university or anything. Okay? So ये सीन है. But as far as living, like, यार ये जो चीज है ना, you then I think try to उनको थोड़ा immortal बनाने की कोशिश करते हो through your actions. For me, that translated into, so my mom was a very religious person, and she was a very moral person. So she always just wanted me to achieve my full religious and moral potential. And she felt like everything else in the world would come with it. There was nothing stopping that, but the main thing to focus on was the moral and spiritual and religious aspect. So after that, bro, honestly, like थोड़ा सा religious अगर tangent में लूँ, तो
Sure.
उसके अंदर मेरा काफी चेंज आया था, in the sense कि because of the faith that I have, the Islamic faith, उसका एक part ये है कि we believe in an afterlife, and we believe that afterlife will be infinite, it will be in eternity. And now after her death, I am fairly certain that she is in a better place. I'm fairly certain, I'm saying only because I'm not God, so I don't have that
I am not the
certainty.
judger.
But if any, I could be certain of anyone,
Yeah,
it would be her.
yeah.
So because अगर वो, if she is not in a better place, then we have no, like, so no chance.
हाँ, फिर तो वो फुल नाइलिज्म वाली उसके ऊपर चले जाओ ना, क्या
realize
ठीक
कराओ
है.
सब कुछ. But yeah, so मेरा उसके बाद से honestly goal यही था, in the few weeks or
To
months
meet
after
again
that,
in the afterlife,
to live
afterlife,
again.
उधर
There
पहुंचो.
was nothing else that I could, because honestly I think you can relate to this. जब आपके parent की death होती है ना, तो uh, after that, I think if you had a survey out of for people who have lost their parent, and the question was के, would you give anything just to spend 5 minutes with them again? I think all of them or most of them would say yes.
Mm.
whether they had a good relationship or a bad relationship with them. They would want those 5 minutes to clear the
Yeah.
air out, to do something. Um,
Hmm.
so like if that is the feeling that we have, so I think it natural logical sense बनती है कि for someone जिसका faith इस तरह का है, you have a chance to live infinite amount of time with them. So that's what I तो और दूसरा उसके साथ फायदा ये हुआ है in a sense कि that exactly what she wanted me. So by wanting to be with her, I naturally have to do acts that she wanted me to do anyway, to be a good person, to be a religious person. तो वो
Yeah.
एक sync में चीज है. Obviously, I deviate because it's not easy, especially in the
Of
world that we're
course.
living in. But I
Of
always try
course.
to, and that is something that like वापस एक रस्सी मुझे खींचती है कि don't stray too far, buddy.
एक टेदर
Uh,
बन गया ना अब तेरी जिंदगी
हाँ
में,
एक
एक
एंकर
कोर्ट का
है वो.
एक टेदर बन गया है कि
मैं
यू
गिल्ट
नो.
गिल्ट अब दो एस्पेक्ट से फील करता हूँ. अगर मेरी स्पिरिचुअल बैटरी थोड़ी ड्रेन भी हुई है ना, और होता है, यू गो अप एंड डाउन, आपके फेजेस आते हैं. अगर मेरी ड्रेन भी हुई है तो मेरी जो एक चीज मुझे हिला के रखती है या हिलाती है, वो ये होती है कि what would she think, or is this really what you're doing after she's gone? Really, you're the son of that person, and like this is what you're doing.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely, absolutely.
तो तो ये एक
Before you continue, it's very funny. I had the same thought process as well, where I was like, यार, and considering like I live abroad, right? तो मेरा ये होता था कि पहले तो अब्बा जी क्या नाम है दुनिया में ही थे तो उनसे चीजें छुपाई जा सकती थी. अब तो उनसे क्या नाम है आसमानों में है तो क्या नाम है he's gonna be seeing
yeah,
everything, right?
yeah,
So like I need to make some serious
adjustments.
behavioral changes
Yeah,
in my life because I don't want to see him see me like him to see me like this, right? And like the thing is like for me honestly और मेरा जो ईमान है वो थोड़ा बहुत honestly I don't know, and again this is again sharing as in who better to share these things with on a public platform but yeah, whenever I'm feeling low or like particularly low, right, something like that, somehow some way like dad comes to me in a dream or something like that. He gives me a sign or something like that. Like I remember, like I was telling you, the period that I had in like when I moved back to Germany. um like I was on a tear. I was like I felt rudderless. I felt like कोई direction नहीं थी, मैं क्या करूँ, like how do I get out of this? And then like one day like he came to me in a dream, like he hugged me and everything, and then he told me everything's gonna be all right. Like I don't know whether that's like chemical processes in my brain or something like that, right?
the
uh
spiritual realm, bro.
as the
The
atheists
spiritual
would
realm.
like me to
It's
believe,
all material.
or or it's, and I have to take solace in the fact that my dad's over there looking out for me, and so yeah, it's a nice feeling to have. It's a nice feeling to have,
And also
and
nice feeling
yeah,
because
I
it
mean
it, it reminds you
we
of the obvious
ex-
fact.
exactly, like there has been a couple of times when this something like this has happened, and I wake up and for a brief moment I forget. For a brief moment I forget of what has happened, and then I
Yeah,
come back
it's
to
right in front of you. It's everywhere. So, like my mom passed away in my house, the house that I'm
yeah.
currently in. So
Mhm.
every moment, every place, every like corner of
Yeah,
the house is a
I
living embodiment of that reality.
I felt that when I was back in home in Pakistan, right, where I was again in that home, and everywhere I used to see where you used to sit, where you used to lie down, stuff like that, where we had a next on any conversation or something like that, right? What I'm talking about is over here, like, and usually that's how it happens when I go to, like, once I'm like the dreams that I have are so visceral and so like so vivid, right? That when I wake up, like for a moment, I live in the reality where he's still with me, right? And then like that, it's gone. Where like you for a moment you think that he's there with you, and like nothing like this has happened, and my life is normal, and then a moment later you're like reminded of everything and stuff like that. So yeah, absolutely, it's I'm glad that we had this conversation. I mean, we've had this conversation privately as well, but I think
No, not really.
honest
I haven't like so for me, I think I I think I'll really benefit from this conversation because funnily enough, I'm a very private and um, closed off person, so I haven't really had this conversation or something like this with anyone in totality. Like बात तो सबसे की हुई है कुछ इन चीजों के बारे में, but never in one go and never recently. Then not recently.
Yeah.
So I think this will definitely make both of us lighter and help
Yeah.
us make sense of whatever it
Yeah.
is that we're going through. So yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's been a pleasure talking to you about
As
all
always.
this.
As
As
always.
always, man. Like, and I hope to see you back on the show again.
I would love to be back. Love
I
to.
will make I will
अभी
make
अभी
you a
जो भी
weekly.
देख रहा होगा ना वो कहेगा कि यार ये तो बड़ा बेचारा मैं क्या कहूँगा, थोड़ी सी अफसोस कर रही होंगे मेरे ऊपर, फिर अभी सब्सिक्वेंट एपिसोड में मुझे गालियां निकाल रहे होंगे।
वही इसलिए तो है, मैंने शुरुआत इसलिए की है कि थोड़ी बहुत तुम्हें सिंपैथी मिल जाए
थोड़ा
कि भाई
बैंक बैलेंस आ
थोड़ा
जाए।
पैकेज आ जाए इस बंदे के, नहीं कि भाई ये बंदा इज बीन थ्रू समथिंग दिस, इसको थोड़ा लीवे
थोड़ा
दे देते हैं।
कॉन्टेक्स्ट दे दो जो आगे आने
हाँ,
वाला है क्या।
ये रेडलर आर्क है ना जो इस्माइल फारूक की, ये दिस विल बी स्ट्रीम लाइव एट केजे टॉक्स।
500 फॉलोअर्स मेरे ऑलरेडी हैं, so I've said there.
Bro, we're gonna make it 1 million, inshallah. Hey, this is the way forward. Joey Diaz,
Oh
Joe
भाई,
Rogan, Andrew Schultz.
अभी
We're
अभी
all
तूने
come.
अभी तूने इंट्रो में कहा था कि वन ऑफ द स्मार्टेस्ट पीपल, और तू एड में कह रहा है जो होगा जोई डियाज एंड्रयू।
We're coming for you, the podcast kings.
Yeah, for sure.
No, yeah, it's honestly like at the end, and I want Ismail to like piggyback off a little bit of what I'm going to say over here. The whole idea in this exercise is is an exercise in radical candor, where is to no longer be bound by the societal things or whatever, or any pressures like that, and just like put it out in the open. Like, doesn't matter who sees it or not sees it. The idea for me for starting this podcast or whatever you want to call it is just a medium where I can share my thoughts and I can have discussions with the smart friends and good friends that I have. And like I feel like I have a lot of decent discussions with my friends, and the idea is to put them out in the public, put them out in the universe, as they say, and see what the result is. And I think it's a good first step. And then Allah kare, jahan pe bhi aake leke jaye. Let's see.
Yeah,
What do you think, Ismail?
yeah, absolutely. I think for obviously मैं थोड़ा तेरी बात को बीच में ये कैवियट डालूंगा कि although हम ये start इसी तरह कर रहे हैं कि we want to have discussions about all sorts of things, as we do generally, because Khawaja and I, we like to sort of have discussions about all sorts of things all the time. And he's one of my favorite people to talk to about all sorts of topics. So there's that, obviously, but caveat ये है कि unfortunately we can never be as candid as we would like to be. So we can try. हम कोई एक optimal वो ढूंढ लेंगे. We'll be. I'll definitely. I'm looking forward to this a lot because already off the first episode, I have been more open and more than I would normally be on a public platform. And I think the reason why I would love to do this with you regularly, is that I'm the sort of guy who wants a space or someone to have these conversations with. जब तू आता है तो इसलिए हम रोज मिलके इतनी लंबी लंबी बातें कर रहे थे, बिकॉज वो एक कोटा जो है ना वो पूरा करना होता है. I there's a gap that's left.
There's
तो
a gap.
now that finally we can do it on Zoom, so जब तू आएगा मेरे से मिली मत.
Bro, I am telling you, unfortunately हमारी जिंदगी इतनी interconnected है ना कि we'll have to meet, and I would love to meet once I'm back. Of course I will. So anyways, guys, this has been the first episode of KJ Talks. I hope you guys liked it. We have been trying to be as open and candid as possible. I mean, we have laid ourselves bare over here in front of you guys. So, and this is the same energy that I hope to bring.
मैं थेरेपिस्ट को जो बोलता मैंने इधर वो बोला है, मैं इससे ज्यादा और open भी होगा.
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We'll try to keep the same energy. throughout. We plan to do a lot more topics. For example, the central overarching theme of this episode was grief. We wanted to talk about other social issues as well. Just two people, and we hope to invite more people on this podcast. Some of them are friends, some of them probably not, or hopefully not rather. But that's the thing, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And with that, it's hasta la vista from KJ.